Hey guys, a very sleepy, filthy robot here. Just got back from my draft, took some photos. I got outvoted. Instead of doing the advertised M19 standard today, we ended up doing Chaos Draft with a bunch of cards and a bunch of sets I don't know, a bunch of abilities that I've never seen before, a bunch of cards I have no idea what the hell they did. So I couldn't just pull these up in the MTG Arena client and show you guys there. So we're gonna do it the old-fashioned hard way. Took some photos. They're pretty poor photos, but they'll get the job done. But I know some of you guys are very interested in how my paper drafts go, and I wanted to walk you through the deck list, talk a little bit about the games, and then hopefully turn this video off, roll into bed, and then wake up in 8 hours for streaming. So let's get to it. All right, so I picked, basically the price points are different for packs. I didn't have any desire for other packs or have any reason to do other packs, so I just picked all the price points were the same for standard packs. So everyone was looking to do different things, so I grabbed Dominaria as the 3 drafts that I picked up, or the 3 packs that I picked up. Maybe I should do spells first here. Let's do spells first. Okay. So pick one, pack one for me. It was a pretty uninteresting pack. I don't remember the rare, honestly. But I did grab a Song of Freyles, and that really set the tone for my deck. A lot of packs from a lot of different sets coming around. I couldn't even tell you what sets they were. There's even a joke set in there. There's a card in there, Eager Beaver is the only card I ended up playing from that, which is a creature we'll talk about in a minute. But anyways, the Song of Freyles really dictated my set. I got one of those in pack one, pick one. In pack two, pick one. I passed the night generating legendary enchantment, oh my god, the saga enchantment. I can't remember its name. The 2 white, 1 colorless for generate a 2/2, then generate another 2/2, then give all your knights +2/+1. I passed that, which I think is actually a fairly valuable card in real life. I don't know, for second Song of Freyles, and that pretty much dictated my deck. Fairly early on, not a lot of good stuff coming my way. A mix of black showed up pretty quick. I think I got a fairly early Deathbloom Thallid, which I never saw again, hilariously, as well as 1 or 2 pieces of removal, some weak removal in the spell slots. I'll walk you through the whole deck in a second, but I just want to tell you kind of how the draft went and why it went that way. So you guys can see over on the right-hand side of the screen, the Assassinate and the Tomb Hex. Tomb Hex is kind of like a Vicious Offering that sometimes, not really like a Vicious Offering. It gives -2/-2 as an instant, and if you have play a land that turn, it gives -4/-4 as an instant. So I think basically what happened is I picked the Song of Freyles, then got past some black removal, and then started building a deck basically around that. Creatures ended up decent, not great. I found a 1/2 black creature that could give me green mana at the cost of life. Shambling Ghoul, which is a 2/3 for 2 that comes in tapped, and a Rune Rat as a 1/1 Death Touch. When it dies, it exiles a card out of my opponent's library. My 3 drops were Eager Beaver, which is a 3/2 for 3 green creature. When it comes into play, you may untap target permanent. Trial of Strength, which generates a 4/2 token, and then if you have cartouches, generates more 4/2 tokens, but no one has cartouches because it's Chaos Draft and everything's wild. Deathbloom Thallid is a 3/2 that was, I think, the only card I never drew in the entire draft. And Drudge Sentinel as a 2/1. Pretty unexcited about playing Drudge Sentinel, but I can show you my cards in a minute. The rest of them, it just kind of was there as a curve filler and kind of there as a way to spend my mana and stall the board. 4 drops were Llanowar Empath, which was great. This was a 4 for a 2/2 scry 2, and then reveal the top card of your library. If it's a creature card, put it into your hand. So sometimes it's basically 4 for a 2/2 scry 2, then draw 1, which is pretty damn good. Mistfire Weaver, which has an ability called Morph, which I've never used before. It's a 3/1 flyer for 1 blue, 3 colorless, and you can cast it instead of casting it for its full cost. You can cast it face down for 3 mana. It makes it a 2/2 colorless creature or 2/2 artifact or something like this. I think it's a 2/2 colorless creature that at any time you can pay another 1 blue, 2 colorless to flip it back over, where it regains its normal stats and gives one of my creatures hexproof till the end of turn. A Vital Splicer, which was really solid, which was 1 green, 3 colorless for a 3/3. When you cast it, create a 3/3 Golem artifact, and you can pay 1 on the Vital Splicer itself to regenerate that Golem token. Woodland Sleuth, which I think I overvalued. It was I believe it's a 2/3 body for 4, has an ability called Morbid, or a type called Morbid. when it enters the play, if a creature died this turn, you can pull a card from your graveyard back to your hand. I thought it would be a little bit like Gravedigger, but it was a lot harder to use, and its extra stat point really wasn't good enough for it. I don't think I would have picked this card in retrospect, but I was expecting to play better. I drew it a couple times where it's like I didn't have a card in my graveyard, and then the other time I drew it, I couldn't get the Morbid effect to actually trigger. It was pretty bad. I got past the Sengir Vampire at some point, which was pretty damn good. It's 5/4, a 4/4 flyer. If it kills a creature, if it did damage to a creature that dies, it gets +1/+1 permanently. And about midway through this draft, I was looking at this and I had some low black cards, a little bit of black removal, a couple green cards. And I'm like, I don't have any way to end this game. I need some sort of win condition. So I picked up a Sphinx when it came by pretty cheaply. I grabbed that Mistfire Weaver at one point. It looked playable, especially since I could cast it without blue mana to begin with and convert it later. And I picked up this Nimbus Champion, which is 6/4, a 4/4 flyer that has some crazy effect when it comes in that doesn't do anything because it's my only warrior. So basically it's just 6/4, 4/4 generic warrior. But it made the cut as basically one of my win conditions, so our 4/4 flyers. Pack 3, pick 1 for me. I opened up Muldrotha, which was great because I was already solidly in black-green with a blue splash. And this fit my colors perfectly. It was exactly what I needed, a late-game strong card that could potentially win me the game. So that was a really welcome addition to this deck. These are the non-creature spells I ended up playing. I picked up a Compass pretty late in, I think, pack 1 and ended up playing it. I'll tell you why in a minute. I normally don't like Compass, but this is a 3-color deck with no other sources of mana fixing besides Compass and Song of Freyalise. Double Song of Freyalise was great, made my mana situation a lot easier. Picked up a Torch Gauntlet as something else to spend mana on. I was a bit worried that this deck would have long periods where it wasn't able to saturate mana as we were top decking for something decent, and I thought this card might be good to fill it out. It's basically a Marauder's Axe from M19, seemed fine. Picked up Hunt the Weak as a little bit of late removal. It was nice because I was basically only on Tome Hex and Assassinate for a long period of time, and Hunt the Weak was a pretty solid pickup. And I picked up an Enhanced Awareness after I'd already started drafting blue flyers fairly late as well, which was 5 for a draw card. And I figure for by the time I'm splashing for a Cloud Reader Sphinx and Nimbus Champion and Muldrotha, although I think I picked the draw card up before Muldrotha, I was happy to also splash for a fairly solid draw card. Savage Silhouette was fairly good too. This is 3, it's an aura, 1 green, 2 colorless, give a creature +2/+2, and the ability to regenerate for 1 forest, 1 colorless. That was pretty good. That ended up performing much better than I expected. It was basically an aura that I could cast on creatures and not immediately get 2 for 1 on, which was pretty damn good. All right, so this was the base deck for spells and creatures. The mana base ended up being 7 swamps, 6 forests, 1 Colony Garden, which is basically a forest except it enters tapped and also puts a 0/1 plant creature token into the battlefield. I got that super late and it seemed to have very good synergy with Song of Freyalise. Basically, if I ever had that when I passed Song, it's +1 creature to generate mana, and worst case scenario, chump blocker. And then 2 islands was what I played for blue cards on that, because between Song of Freyalise plus Navigator's Compass and 2 islands, that seemed plenty of mana sources for me. And what I ended up doing is I went down, this is 16 lands, if you know, 7 swamps, 6 forests, 1 garden, and 2 islands is 16 lands, not 17. In part because my curve isn't super high, although the Nimbus Champion is quite high and the Muldrotha is quite high, but in part because I have 3 sources of mana fixing in as real cards. The Blightsoil Druid is a 1/2 giving me mana. The Navigator's Compass, although not a actual land, fixes my mana types, and then both Song of Freyalise give me mana of any color when I generate them. So I went down to 16 lands to play this. All right, sideboard cards. There are a couple more than this, but these were the ones that I was actually considering as sideboard cards. 2 of them that were quite strong, which I subbed in almost every game, were Grave Peril and Accursed Spirit. They're both cards that hate on any color that isn't black. Grave Peril is kind of weak removal that the opponent can play into. Basically, I place it down there, and the next creature that comes into play that's not black gets killed, my creature or their creature. Accursed Spirit is a 3/2 for 4 that's unblockable except by other black creatures or artifact creatures. Both of those I subbed in every time I was in a game where my opponent wasn't black. The cards that mostly came out were Drudge Sentinel and Nimbus Champion. Nimbus Champion feeling very slow to me, and Drudge Sentinel feeling like a pretty weak 3-drop. Unless I had reasons to do otherwise. The other cards that were sometimes useful, I did play Academy Journey Mage once versus a guy running heavy auras. Blister Beetle is a 2 for a 1/1 that comes into play, give target creature -1/-1 to end of turn. I put that in versus a guy who had a couple like 3/1 style creatures. Macabre Waltz I put in versus a guy who was running heavy removal. and it did some work there. Never played the Dinosaur Hunter or the Pierce the Sky, never saw big flyers and never saw dinosaurs, but I thought they might be there. I played around with the idea of playing Morbid Curiosity. Morbid Curiosity is 2 black, 1 colorless sorcery that as an additional cost of casting the spell, you sacrifice I sacrifice a creature and artifact, and I draw cards equal to its converted mana cost. I thought that it might be good in this deck since there were a number of creatures with high converted mana costs but low combat toughness, like for example the Vital Splicer, who is a 1/1 for 4, the Woodland Sleuth, who's a 2/3 for 4, the End Path, who's a 2/2 for 4. Thought I might get some value out of that, but I never could quite find the time to do it and never really had the mana or tempo to play a card like that. So it was an idea that I thought might come in but never got around to. And I almost played the Snapping Drake since my game plan at some point seemed to be kill them with flyers. Now, that was my thoughts going into the games. It changed a little bit once I started playing. So round 1, I matched up against a black-red aggro deck with menace creatures, a ton of removal. I don't know how he got as much removal as he did, and an Icy Manipulator in there. He just crushed me first game. I just couldn't stabilize versus his damage sources. Second game was extremely close. I had a nice opening with Song of Freyalise and some other creatures to generate enough mana, and pretty early on, maybe like turn 4 or 5, cast a Muldrotha with the Song of Freyalise on the board, thinking, man, I'm in good shape. And his turn was, I think it must have been turn 6, or my turn 5, his turn 6, because he went first. So I guess my turn 5, I did that, and on his turn 6, he played Act of Treason to steal my Muldrotha, then Vicious Offering, killing my Muldrotha and my other creature that was going to get hit by Song of Freyalise, removing them both from the field before they got the +1/+1 and the indestructible trample and vigilance, which was almost cost me the game. It was really close. I clawed my way back into that with an Icy on the board, and eventually did manage to win game 2 versus my opponent there. Super close game. In game 3, I can't remember exactly how it went. I think it was a little bit closer, less of a blowout from him on that part, but a little bit slower ramp up for me. I did eventually manage to lock down the game. I think he flooded what it was, and I drew a late Muldrotha and got value out of casting out of my graveyard and just managed to take the game that way. That was match 1, so it went to 3 games. Not a lot of mana issues for me in that, but not super powerful versus a lot of removal. It was hard for keeping my creatures on the board to do anything. Match 2, I matched into a 5-color deck doing I don't even know. The first game it opened up with pretty decent aggro from white creatures, vigilant white creatures, which was killing me because assassinates destroy target tap creature, and this was one of my few pieces of removal, and beat me with that from stealing a million life and just killing me. The second game, I had a sick opening versus him second game and just totally destroyed him with Song of Freyalise. And then third game was a little bit more close. He opened this nuts fucking opener. It was absolutely nuts. It was like for a 5-color deck, he played like a turn and he mulliganed on the first game. So he was on the play a 5-color deck with 1 card down, so 6 cards on the play, and ended up opening with just like, it was a 2-drop, and then the 2-drop had an ability where you could sacrifice it and provide 2 colorless mana to cast more creatures. And if you used that colorless mana to cast creatures, those creatures had haste that turn. So he sacrificed that 2-drop into a 2-drop and another 2-drop on turn, I guess it must have been 3, or 2-drop and a 3-drop, both of which came in hasted. And that's how he like opened the door. They're all different colors with like 3 different mana sources. It was nuts. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, I would never ever have been willing to play a multicolored deck like that because my mana sources would never have worked out. But it didn't matter. We stabilized, and Song of Freyalise then killed him with a very big Sengir Vampire with regeneration and Song of Freyalise bonuses. Songs were so good. They were definitely the MVP of this deck. I mean, it's why we picked him. It was pick 1, pack 1, and pick 1, pack 2, which is pretty damn good. Cards that did more work than I would have thought. Sengir Vampire was amazing. Just showed up a lot, and for 5 mana was pretty castable. I was on the field a lot, doing a lot of damage. The Regenerate card from Savage Silhouette was really good. Showed up a lot, did a lot of work. The songs were incredible, just unbelievably good. Navigator's Compass was fairly good. There's 2 games where I was missing one of my colors, and not just blue, but like missing black or green, and Navigator's Compass fixed it for a long enough period of time that it didn't matter. And Vital Splicer was really, really good, the one summoning the extra 3/3 Golem. I never got to use the morph effect of Mistwire Weaver, or rather, I did use it once. I morphed to avoid taking lethal from that black-red deck when he cast a spell that made all non-flyers be unable to block as a last-ditch attempt to try to kill me. And I converted that and didn't die to that. But other than that, it didn't do anything. I never ever got to use the hexproof portion of that. Never drew Deathbloom Thallid, so it was underperformed. Muldrotha did amazing in this deck. And a lot of these other creatures are fairly just normal. And then round 3, which was the final round, I played a, my God, red, green, blue, big creature deck with blue for draw is what he was playing. And I had Nuts Opener on game 1, where it was, I think, a turn 4 or turn 5 Muldrotha with Song of Freyalise to get him out. And then also with Muldrotha in play, you can just Song of Freyalise from your graveyard every single time it finishes, which he just conceded pretty quick into that. He said he had a 5 damage nuke in hand, but he couldn't use 6 damage to Muldrotha because that was the turn that I cast it. So he conceded pretty quick into that. And the second game after that, he opened with some pretty decent aggression, but I managed to stabilize long enough and sideboard killed him. Managed to get both Grave Peril active versus him, and a Cursed Spirit did the final damage. We were on a little bit of a stalled board state where I had a bit more life than he did, but couldn't finish him off. And he was sitting there potentially drawing to an answer, and the Cursed Spirit was the final blow that snuck by all of his blockers and killed him. So I did end up winning again this week. It was a 10-person draft, Chaos Draft. A lot of cards I don't know. Grave Peril was okay. Very good versus the non-black decks. It was a little bit clunky still because I have black and green creatures, but it was pretty good. Like, I just played it on boards where I already had dominant presence, and then they were forced to sacrifice something into it before they could do it. Cursed Spirit was decent. I didn't draw it a lot, but it was fine versus targets that weren't running black creatures. It becomes 3/2 unblockable, which is pretty damn good. Torch Gauntlet underperformed, just didn't have the mana for it. Hunt the Week was okay. Overall, just an interesting little draft. We had a little bit of removal, fairly light. No really solid removal. This one requires there to be tapped. The Tomb Hex is just -2, -2, or -4, -4 as an instant, which is a little bit rough. And Hunt the Week requires that we win a fight. I did steal one of the games by hunting the Week, a 7/7 with a Rune Rat, so that was pretty damn good. But other than that, not too good on removal. And really what carried the game wasn't flyers. We didn't do a lot of air beatdowns. What ended up winning the game mostly was Song of Freyalise counters just being impossible for the opponent to recover from that much of a damage swing and that much of a tempo swing, and then us finishing them off with flyers or unblockable creatures. Super fun set of games overall. I dropped the match to each of the opponents except the final opponent. So I went 0. My first game was a loss in match 1, and then it was win-win. And then in match 2, my first game was a loss, and then it was win-win. So it was definitely, for me, edge of the seat the entire time. Wasn't sure if I was going to be able to progress and be able to make it through. And pretty damn fun overall. Really enjoy the paper drafts. I wish this had been M19 because I prefer to draft with cards that I know as opposed to all these crazy cards that I've never seen before. But overall, still kind of a fun experience. Definitely would do it again. Hopefully it won't be chaos next time. But yeah, really nice. It was so rewarding to open Muldrotha in pack 3 when I was already in blue, green, black, and be like, holy crap, this is exactly the card this deck needs. And nice to see the deck, the archetype that we built around the Song of Freyalise with ramping into big threats actually do what it needed to do. Song of Freyalise is a really complicated card to play. You often are sitting in your hand where you'll have, like 5, you'll have the option, you'll have 2 creatures giving you sources of mana with Song, either after you cast Song or maybe on like phase 2 of it, with maybe 3 cards in hand where you're making the decision, do I want to swing for some damage, or do I want to commit more to the board by using them as mana sources to try to get bigger Songs to win the game long term. And it puts these situations where your mana is, there's a lot of decisions to be playing. Normally, if you just have 5 lands in play, okay, it's pretty easy. You look at your hand, you go, okay, what am I going to do with my 5 mana here? But when your creatures are either do damage or provide mana, it's very interesting. So the board states are very interesting for me. It made very complicated games. Yeah. Anyways, as I said, very late for me, but I did want to record this while I could, and I wasn't going to be able to get a chance to do this tomorrow before the stream, and I wouldn't be able to get a chance to do this on MTG Arena, so it makes it very difficult to do this live as a recap. So for those of you who are interested in the paper drafts, this is this is the recap of, I guess, Paper Draft 4 for me. My current record is 2 wins, 1 second place, and 1 unranked. The drafts as a whole have been mostly 10 people. I think we've had 10 people 3 times and 6 people once for the drafts. And up till now, they've been M19 drafts, but this was my first Chaos draft with a bunch of sets that I have no idea what the fuck they do, and a bunch of types of cards that I hadn't seen before. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Let me know, and I'll see you guys soon. Thanks for watching.